So straight out of university, I was doing iBanking, and then I was able to save up some money, and I came back to Toronto from New York, and I started buying houses myself. Like I started buying like detached homes in Toronto, and I was doing rental properties. And I realized that within a few years, I had a lot of people come up to me asking me the same thing, like, hey, can you help us do the same thing that you're doing? And it sort of was like a logical step for me to like move into real estate sales as well. And most of my sales, I think about 80 to 90% of my sales are from investors. As Alex mentioned earlier too, I think it really, really helps when you're a buyer of your own product that you're selling. And when you have that kind of confidence, when you sit across the table with clients and you're sort of saying that, hey, listen, I put my money where my mouth is because what I'm asking you to buy, I've done before and I've successfully executed. And that gives a lot of credibility for a lot of investors. I get tons of referrals from investors. So for them, it's all about returns. So when you lay it out for them, and usually what I do is, for example, if I sit with an investor, I have a case study for him. It's not just throwing listings at him. So usually when I sit down with them and I say, understand their expectations and their needs and their wants, I'll pretty much lay out like a case study of how we're going to go about this. Yeah. So for me, it's all about waiting for the right kind of property to come out in the market. And at that point, I've had investors even buy properties from me without even looking at the houses because my case studies that I prepare for them are very detailed. Yeah. So I'll have, this is the purchase price, these are your cash flows, this is what my next 1 to 3 year projections look like. And what happens is like within 1 year, or you give them a 2 or 3 year projection, and within 1 year, if you're actually giving them what you want, then you really have them, right? Because they invested some money with you and you're really beating every number that you gave them. And that sort of, got them to say that, hey, listen, I have a few friends who are looking for the exact same thing. And the investors that I'm talking to are mainly like doctors, lawyers, bankers, and people like that who very quickly, if you give them results, they will be very inclined to come back to you and do the same thing. So I think anybody in sales or real estate, I think it's very logical to say that we should all have a niche or an expertise that we work in. So for example, I feel like before I was a real estate agent, I interacted with a lot of real estate agents as an investor, and I felt like they were jack of all trades. Like, yeah, we do this and we do that, and Barrie and North York and everything. I feel like it's very important to have a niche, and I have developed, and I've always tried to market myself as doing detached homes only in Toronto. Okay. So when an investor sits with me and he talks about Barrie or he talks about Mississauga, I'm very quick to say that, I'm going to put you in touch with an expert and maybe refer that deal out, because I want to specifically focus on the niche that I buy for myself in, for example, put my own money in.
For sure. Yeah.
So, and that niche is detached homes in Toronto. Yeah. And I feel like because I've done that for 5-6 years, I understand it better than a lot of people. And, and everybody who focuses on a niche and an expertise, I think he's much more confident selling what he's selling instead of being jack of all trades. Something Alex stuck in my head, and I think that's the reason why I got an assistant. He said something. He's like, an assistant is not somebody who just helps you with your paperwork, but if you have somebody working in the office, you're going to be more inclined to go on time and make sure that she has work. Right. And when you have somebody to give work to, work is going to get created. That's the reason why I got an assistant for the last 6 months, and not only has it helped me organize, but it's also helped me grow and also starting to get me more organized. So she organized me in like top producer. She started doing my contracts. I felt like I started spending a lot more time on the road. I started spending a lot more, follow-ups with people I hadn't even called in 6 months. Okay. So she started getting me organized in that sense. And like I said, when you have somebody sitting in the office, there are days where there's nothing to do, and that's the time when you start creating stuff and being creative with stuff. So up here, $16 an hour. Okay. And I gave her bonuses on like certain things that she'll do that are really extraordinary, for example. Okay. She hasn't been with me she's only been with me for like about 3 to 4 months. Yeah. But a couple of lease deals that she did, a couple of sales that she did, I gave her like an extra bonus. And then obviously if she's running around for me, I'll give her like gas cards. It's pretty basic stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, needless to say, you have to love what you do, right? And if you're passionate about doing what you're doing, you have to believe in the product you're selling. And I'm going to come back to saying the same thing. If you're selling real estate and you're not a buyer of your own product, it's going to reek out of you. And a lot of the investors, a lot of even the homeowners, just a simple thing is, working with a first-time home buyer, just to have that experience yourself. Like, I always related back to my first-time home buyers, like, hey, listen, 5 years ago, I was exactly where you were, so I know exactly how the psychology works. So you really have to experience that whole thing yourself to be able to sell it and transfer that over to the other person. So anybody who's selling real estate and you love what you do and you want to be successful at it, you have to be able to at least draw out a plan for yourself to be able to purchase it. And like Alex said, I mean, the city is growing. It's one of the best cities to live in. Real estate, one of the best investments, and you're going to go out there and sell. You want to put your money where your mouth is. So be a buyer of your own product, or at least have a plan. I think you definitely want to come into the industry making relationships, not just with other agents. You also want to make relationships with excellent mortgage people. You want to have relations with excellent lawyers. Even if sometimes their fee is a little bit higher than the others, try to focus on making long-term relationships. Like, for example, when people come to me, they're like, you know, do you have a reno guy? Yes. Do you have a lawyer? Yes. Do you have a mortgage guy? Yes. And these are guys that not only just I know, and you know, it's just like a word of mouth. Like, I'll take them out for dinners. I'll take them out. I'll build that relationship so that when your client goes to them, and it automatically comes from the fact that that guy is talking about you and reinstating the fact that you're a very good realtor. So don't just focus on your own business. I mean, find a builder in the area that you're really good with. You know, have answers ready, like how much does it cost per square feet? How much is this? How much is that? How much is a finished basement? You want to have relationships with every single person in the industry, and that gives you a lot of credibility as well. And I think that's also helped me a lot. Examples of my own investments, for example, something I bought 2 years ago. So I'll give them a whole, like, you know, what was the purchase price? How much did I put down? What's the closing cost, to the point where they have it till the pennies. And then you show them the cash flows. You show them potential of renting. Like, some of the properties you need to buy, you need to renovate, you need to rent. So that shows them a little bit detail about their cash flows. Then comes, you know, which area are they buying at, what street they're buying at, what neighborhood are they buying at, why this specific house on the street. So I find myself even like driving around in the neighborhood at 3 in the morning just to see what kind of cars are on the driveway. So on that case study, in that particular house, I will go to the point where they will understand why this house facing south on that street is better than house facing on North Street. So it really gives them a little bit more of a, you know, confidence when they're going in, and it doesn't leave much room for questions after they have something like that on their case study, right? And usually it's always handed out after I sign the BRA. Usually I'm going to get their interest up and say, once you get with me, you'll understand why it is that as what I do. So in some cases, once I have a buyer and I know that I'm going to put him in an area where it's poised for growth and this kind of cash flows, I will then start cold calling that area and finding a seller of that specific home. And 1 out of 10 cases, if I do find a buyer there, or a seller there, I'll have a buyer already ready and I'll double end the deal. Right. Or I'll go into a joint partnership with him, or I'll just sell them in the house, and that's that. So usually that comes off as a win-win situation for both. And a lot of the houses that I target to buy are Second World War homes in very good locations in Toronto, one of the top areas. So you're dealing with a lot of older couples and stuff like that. So I've also looked into tying up with a retirement specialist. So sometimes what I do is I go in with that person and say, have you even considered moving? And you'll be surprised how many times in certain areas, a lot of these people haven't even heard about, you know, retirement homes. They're just too scared to leave their homes. They're too much in their comfort zone. For sure. So just ideas like that. And I think, yeah, those case studies will literally include everything. And then I also have 1 year, second year, third year, very conservative projections that I know for a fact they'll beat, because it's always good to call them back in 6 months to a year. Hey, did you see what this other house on the street sold for, and we bought it for this price? And that gives them a chance to say, hey, that's awesome. Is there anything else coming up? And right off the bat, you've got them for something else.
Okay, good.
So.